My name is Zaid Paruk, Portfolio Manager and Analyst at Aeon Investment Management. My role entails overseeing the various portfolios of Aeon Investment Management on behalf of our clients, as well as attending to any client queries, trading activities, overseeing the trading activities, engaging with the various teams and analysts within the team, and overseeing portfolios. So as a portfolio manager analyst, we do a lot of reading. It's very important that we obtain various sources and knowledge in terms of information, in terms of understanding what we're actually looking at. As I mentioned, we speak to company management teams, we speak to industry experts, we speak to people on the ground, we speak to businessmen, we speak to really anybody where we feel we can obtain some insight and knowledge in terms of what we're covering. The beauty part of being in a strong investment team such as Aeon Investment Management is that we have a strong investment team. And through the investment team, with a really good fundamental analysis, we are able to obtain those insights. And through that, we actually look at various case studies in terms of investments that are under consideration. A recent example that we are looking at is we looked at the food sector in particular, where we found a lot of value. And this was driven primarily by our investment philosophy and process, which is based on expectations theory, where we look at what's priced into the market in terms of expectations, in terms of returns, versus what's actually sustainable. So if you recall recently, we had the Ukraine and Russia crisis, which impacted maize and wheat prices in particular, and that drove down a lot of the food sector in particular, because the input costs and the inflation pressures that were coming in actually affected what the cost base of these companies were. After delving in a little bit deeper, just in terms of looking at the actual companies, what we realized that the market was penalizing these companies to the degree that many of them were expecting little or no growth. We then looked at the companies a little bit further. We obtained analysis, industry deep dive in terms of looking at the long-term drivers of returns within these companies. Primarily, we look at things like revenue growth and operating margin within those companies. And what we realized is that if you look on a sustainable basis versus what was implied by the market, it actually led to a lot of value uplift within the portfolios. And at that time, we invested within the food sector. So very early on in my life, I knew that I didn't exactly know where I wanted to go, but I knew that it had to be something within the commerce faculty, because that's where I felt most of my benefit that I could add later on would come from. I decided to go within the BCom accounting route and with the CA option in particular. And there was a variety of reasons as to why I chose that. But my path thereafter in terms of getting into the asset management, or my real passion in terms of where I was going through, came through very early on than university. From the time I was about 8, or as early as I can remember, I worked in a family business. I sweep the floors. I used to label. It was a clothing shop, so I used to label the clothes, pack the packets, do a bit of the cashing as I got a little bit more experienced. So that was how I spent all my holiday time as a child. Not always out of choice, but it taught me later on, now down the line, a lot of important lessons, which I still hold true today. So that was how I spent my time. I made just a little bit enough to go and buy, some KFC as lunch. That was as much as I could afford at that time with my wages. And that's how I spent, majority of my childhood together with my siblings. And it was inculcated with us that, you have to now build a sense of entrepreneurship, ability to drive income, grow, invest, save. My family is quite from an entrepreneurial background. We used to meet every Friday over dinner with our extended family, and economics, finance, matters of the day, business, politics, those were the kind of things that I grew up with. So having that commercial background, that understanding entrepreneurship background in terms of driving from a commerce background in particular, assisted me just in terms of my knowledge of the market and where I wanted to go. I was fortunate that I actually enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the commercial aspect of it. And that's how it actually led me to, once finishing school, driving me into the commerce faculty. So once I got to campus in my first year, I met another friend of mine who we're still friends today, and he introduced me to this concept of investing. I always knew about investing, but I never knew in particular how to go about it. How do I actually now go and invest? And he introduced me to share trading or share investing, and he was also studying in the commerce faculty with me, and we spent many of the times studying for exams, but actually we found ourselves looking at company financials, reading about other companies, and then using what we've learned in class to analyze those companies. And with a very small amount, he encouraged me and said, look, just take a little bit of money. And at the time, I remember it was 500 Rand, which I had, which was a lot of money for me. And we actually, he opened the share account with me, the share trading account, and said, look, let's start investing. This is how you need to go about it. And he practically took me through the steps of actually opening the account. And together, we actually sat and we used to look at companies, various companies, and try and learn and understand. UCT was supportive. I joined the investment society there, where I spent 2 years, one as a committee member, one as the treasurer of the organization. And that also continued that development in terms of investing, understanding, savings environment and the financial aspect of it. Promoted me to actually go and speak. Many of the events also had industry leaders, thought leaders come and speak to us as students to encourage us to go out and understand the environment and the marketplace that we operate in. Through that, met many companies. Those CEOs who are also listed companies introduced me to that aspect of talking to companies. And what I found was that many of the business leaders were happy to share their story with us. And from that, it actually encouraged us as young people, young students, to actually invest within the country, because many of the goals and dreams and targets that they had, aspirations for the country, aligned with many of our own. So we invested with many of the companies, and through that process, actually developed my skill and love and passion for investing till this day, and the career that I actually chose. Every week is different. You wake up in the day, and with the nature of the markets, every day presents either new opportunities or moving news flow, which affects the markets and affects portfolios. So it's very hard and difficult to say each day is predictable. When you wake up in the morning, something has changed in China or the East or the US overnight, and that's just the nature of the markets that we deal with. The least favorite thing, sure, that's a difficult one to say, because I would do my job for free. That's really the reality of it, that I jump on my way to work because it's so exciting. I was doing this, as I mentioned, I was doing it as a student anyway, and then I realized, I was actually quite good at it. I think that the least favorite thing within the field that I learn is that there's often a lot out there. The market is huge. There's the number of listed stocks globally, as I mentioned now, is hundreds of thousands of companies out there in various different companies. But time is a limiting factor. You have to focus yourself in terms of where the opportunities are, and often at times you aren't able. It's just part of it. You don't have the time or the capacity to now focus on various companies out there, and some of them are doing such exciting stuff. There's good innovation coming up. There's companies which are interesting, doing funky new stuff. The ability is that we don't have the time and capacity, unfortunately. A challenging part within the career is getting in. I think for the most part, it's a very small industry, and it's highly skilled, it's highly competitive. There's many people out there who have a similar skill, be it a degree or a background in terms of school, in terms of trying to get in. And it's an industry that's very appealing. So many people want to get into it because of the sexiness of the industry, but maybe not knowing what does the industry actually entail or the hard work that goes about, behind the scenes. So getting in was a difficult part, and how do you differentiate yourself in terms of getting in is a difficult thing as well. And for me, that presented a huge challenge just in terms of my career path to get to where I am today. So what does it mean for a young person or a new generation leader or somebody who wants to get ahead in life is that you can't just have a single skill. You have to be multiple skill, you have to be multi-skilled, learn from various different avenues and information sources, and try and group that and put pieces together in terms of driving that additional outperformance or alpha that you can generate as a person. So you can't rely on just having a single thing and say, look, I know this is going to be the thing, because the chances are that many people around the world have that same skill as you. So how do you drive that additional benefit in terms of whatever you're trying to do is trying to derive various sources and different sources, look at it from a rounded perspective and consider it all. A challenging part within the career is getting in. I think for the most part, it's a very small industry, and it's highly skilled, it's highly competitive. There's many people out there who have a similar skill, be it a degree or a background in terms of school, in terms of trying to get in. And it's an industry that's very appealing. So many people want to get into it because of the sexiness of the industry, but maybe not knowing what does the industry actually entail or the hard work that goes about, behind the scenes. So getting in was a difficult part, and how do you differentiate yourself in terms of getting in is a difficult thing as well. And for me, that presented a huge challenge just in terms of my career path to get to where I am today. I think it was starting off small, not trying to say, I just want to get in, but not knowing for myself I have the ability or the skill to do it. So gaining confidence to myself, firstly and foremost, that I was getting into, I was doing the role in my own small way anyway. I was managing money for myself, managing money for some family members, and learning those skills in terms of becoming a portfolio manager. You don't have to be called a portfolio manager to be a portfolio manager. Anybody can be a portfolio manager. You just manage your own money. By the nature of you having your own bank account and managing your money every month, you are your own portfolio manager. So for myself, running a small investment company, building those skills with those around me, and learning that very early on allowed me to face many of the challenges that I would have experienced later on. So the time that you now then get an opportunity to showcase your talent, the numbers change. The numbers definitely got bigger for me. I mean, at the time, as I said, my first investment was 500 Rand. Together we manage, today I manage, we oversee close to 20 billion Rand. So the numbers change astronomically, but the percentages stay the same. The focus on risk remains the same. The understanding of those companies remain the same. So the numbers just change, but the skills you've learned, that you've had and you've learned along the way, that's invaluable in terms of learning. And that's what I feel has separated me. But also having the background and the knowledge and the confidence, how's that gained? That was becoming a chartered accountant. Like anything, in terms of wanting to be the best in your field, you need to have that educational background, because if you want to know the best about your body, you can speak to a doctor. They're the most skilled because they know your body. That's what they've been trained to do. In terms of commerce, the best that you can do is having that degree or educational qualification that allows you to have the knowledge in terms of deep diving and understanding the numbers. Because as you mentioned, we do a lot with numbers. So understanding those numbers for me was key. And I found the chartered accountant profession giving me that ability and key to understanding it better. Success means different things to different people. I've seen people, as I said, who have no educational background who continue to be, who become successes, but albeit a different route. So everybody's route is different. There's not one defined route that will get you that success. And everybody wants to become successful, but very few want to do the hard work and that happens behind the scenes. People like looking at what glitters and what's gold, but often forgetting and realizing that there's a lot of pain behind that. And I feel that as young people, is you need to know that there's a path, and that path takes time, and that path is different for many out there. So take the time, think about what you want to do, and then just do it.